Bom dia,
Eu tenho
good morning,
simultâneo.
bonjour. That's all my French. So again, on behalf of Câmara de Comércio Brasil-Canadá, the CCBC, and its Diversity and Inclusion Committee, I want to welcome you to this very special event organized jointly with the Consulate General of Canada in Brazil. A little bit on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee that we have in the Chamber. It was created around, I think, 60 years ago as a joint initiative of CCBC and the Canadian government in São Paulo. And I have the pleasure of sharing the coordination of this committee with Anouk Bergeron-Laliberté, the Senior Trade Commissioner, who's here, and we'll talk to you a little bit later. The main objective of this committee is to bring discussion of several aspects of diversity and inclusion the companies face today. We have different types of events, such as small group meetings, seminars, webinars, presentations by experts in different topics like ageism, racism, LGBTQAI+, refugees, and other topics that may be of interest to the group and to the companies that are members of CCBC. And at the end of the year, we generally have a diversity forum, which is a larger event. Last year, the main topic was on the inclusion of persons with disability. And we had a very good help from the consulate, especially Anouk, who is here. And this year we're planning another forum. We still don't have the topic. Canada has, as I see, a large and very successful experience on diversity and inclusion. And the experience is always brought to the table in our events. And this is what helps the discussion and benefits all the members that are part of the group. This is also very much in line with the philosophy and objectives of CCBC itself. The Câmara, as an independent entity, has created its own internal diversity and inclusion committee, which is very active. We have signed Women Empowerment Principles of the United Nations, and we always look for enhancing and getting a better degree on that. We created the Materna Initiative, which is activities to help mothers as they return from their maternity leave. We have a leadership project going on. And for all of this and some other activities, last year we received the Diversity Award, Selo de Diversidade, in Portuguese, from the municipality of São Paulo. So today we have this great opportunity to have this roundtable on women in international trade, looking at both Brazilian and Canadian perspectives. And for this, I want to acknowledge and thank the presence of very special guests. Sara Wilshaw, the Chief Trade Commissioner, Monica Shimenes, CEO and founder of MCM Brand Group, of course, accompanied by Dr. Heather Cameron, the General Counsel in São Paulo, the President of the Chamber, Ronaldo Ramos, who is here also to enhance diversity on this group. Thank you. We have Anouk Bergeron-Laliberté, who is the Senior Trade Commissioner responsible for Canadian Trade Commissioner team in Brazil. Avril Espinosa Malpica, Trade Commissioner in São Paulo, who is over there. We also have members of the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce in Toronto, who is our sister company based in Canada. And of course, many other important participants who are present here today around the table and those attending us online. So I just want to thank you for joining us this morning. Special thanks to the Consulate in São Paulo for putting together this special event. And I will now hand the microphone to Anouk, who will continue with the event. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Good morning, everyone. Bon dia, bonjour tout le monde. I'm sorry, I have a bit of a voice problem this morning, but a very special thank to the Chamber, because without you guys, the Chamber here, without the BCCC also in Canada, and We Connect International through Monica to be partners in this event on the occasion of our special guest in Brazil, Sara Wilshaw, Chief Trade Commissioner of Canada. So that's great. I'm super happy to to be able to organize or to be able to participate and to have our team here involved in this initiative. As Esther mentioned, I think it goes beyond what we're going to be talking about today in terms of what we do within the commission. But I think what we're going to be exchanging on today will eventually, move us forward with this important value that we share with Brazil. So. And it's important we contribute and we exchange views on that, and we compare notes and we learn from each other. So that's great to be here. I'm just going to spend 2 minutes to explain a little bit the flow of the event today. So we will start with a conversation between our two panelists, which I will introduce a little bit with more details in a moment, and then we will ask a few people who know about that in advance to comments and share some views, and then we'll open for a greater discussion with you in the room here, and also people online. And for you participants online, I will ask you right away to put your questions into the chat function of Zoom, so we can see your questions and address them as when we get to that part of the event. So I'm going to start with introducing both of our panelists this morning, and I'm going to already ask you to share with us, a little bit of a few words or introduction, if you will, on your respective career, and maybe share some personal comments on diversity and inclusion, what it means for you or what it has been for you. But before I'm gonna introduce you a little bit more officially with a bit of additional information. So Sara Wilshaw, our Chief Trade Commissioner and Assistant Deputy Minister for International Development. I should know that better. International business development. It's changing, eh? But Chief Trade Commissioner. This is what you need to remember. Yeah, she's a senior government executive with 28 years of public service. Super young.
Maybe a few more actually.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, it needs an update then. Yeah, maybe 30 years we should say. So she leads the global team of trade commissioners, which we are part of, myself and Avril with me in the room here, that helps Canadian businesses explore international markets, find new customers and partners, problem solve and promote growth through exports. She also leads work across. It's a big job, eh? Work across global trade support services, including export finance, and we have EDC in the room. Monica will talk to us in a bit, for an investment, recruitment of international students, and responsible business conduct. She has extensive experience on Canada-US relations, among other things, including being directly involved in the renegotiation of NAFTA and as Canada's Consul General in Dallas. And she has also served abroad at the High Commission of Canada in India, at Canada's permanent mission to the World Trade Organization in Geneva, and at the Embassy of Canada in Japan. So an extensive experience here. Monica Shimenes, our panelist, also sharing the microphone with Sara, a woman, speaker, entrepreneur, and musician. Monica Shimenes is the founder and CEO of MCM Brand Experience, an integrated communications group with national and international operations in Canada as well, committed to performance and responsible actions in diversity and inclusion. She was named Woman Global Entrepreneur of the Year by We Connect International and recognized as a global entrepreneur by IWEC International. She has more than 20 years of experience in marketing, communication, and event management. So I'll turn to you. Maybe we'll start with you, Sara, for your personal thoughts to introduce the topic.
Sure. Well, thank you. And thanks for being here, everyone, physically and virtually. I think we started to call these kind of phygital. I don't know. There's lots of words like physical and digital type of meetings. But I think it's great because it gives us a chance to reach out a little farther than those in the room. At least we can take something positive from the COVID experience that we had. Thank you for that introduction, Anouk, and it's wonderful to be with the Consul General and with Monica and the Chamber and all of the work that folks are doing to help build the bridges between Canada and Brazil. But we are talking today about a little bit more. You were saying maybe it's a little unusual. I don't think it's that unusual. I think it's actually really important because I think that the problems that challenge us and face us internationally right now are going to need solutions that involve everybody. I think that everybody has something to bring to this, to the table in this space, and we will not achieve the goals that we are seeking to achieve without inclusion, without finding new answers, different answers, and getting into the diversity question. So actually, I think that's the really necessary part of it. In terms of sort of my personal journey, you talked a little bit. It's funny, we don't talk a lot about ourselves, right? But you talked a little bit about the professional journey. I'm going to bring in a little of the personal side. So it's really, I was thinking about this last night. My mother was it's all about our mothers and grandmothers, isn't it? Right? Like my mother was an activist in the women's movement in Canada in the 70s. And 80s, and my grandmother, if I think they came from, my parents came from England. My grandmother was a businesswoman in England back in, in the sort of 50s and 60s, and it was challenging for her, right? It was really, but she was a force of nature. Anyway, one may wonder where I get my chutzpah, as they say. I don't know what the word is for chutzpah in Portuguese, but it is that ambition and that drive. The other place I get it actually comes from being the youngest in a family of 6, and I have 4 older brothers. And my general ethos was, if they can do it, so can I, right? The little one always runs along behind. Yeah, me too, me too. That was me. And we were very competitive with each other. So I have never felt that. And I understand now, having talked to many more women, particularly young women, there's a hesitancy that many women feel about putting themselves forward. I never felt that because I looked at my brothers and thought, really? Like, no, I could definitely do that. So it's an interesting thing. It has been an interesting journey for me to learn from others about their challenges and then talk about what we can do together to support each other. And I really think the support of other women has been absolutely instrumental. The other thing that I would say is champions matter. Leadership, examples, and champions supporting each other. What was it Madeleine Albright said about, women supporting other women? And then she got kind of criticized for this statement. But I really believe that there is a special role for women to support other women. And it's been something that I have been doing all of my career. And it's funny because Marie Gagné is here with me. She is my chief of staff, but we worked together 14 years ago. I was pregnant at the time. She had a new baby. We both had little children at home. And I remember those early conversations, and it meant a lot. I think at the time that we could share some of those experiences around how we're managing work and family. And that was very instrumental. And we've spent 14 years trying to figure out how we can work together again. So I think these things are really important. So those are kind of my personal reflections, and it's just great to have this opportunity to talk a little bit more about what we can do both personally, professionally, practically to support each other.
Excellent. Thank you, Sara. Now we're going to listen a little bit to Monica to see a little bit.
Vou falar sem fone para não ficar me ouvindo em inglês. É um grande prazer estar aqui, ver todas essas mulheres preocupadas em trazer outras mulheres. Tem um grupo que eu gosto muito que chama Uma Sobe e Puxa a Outra. E eu acho que esse é o movimento das mulheres, de poder usar a sua própria voz para poder impulsionar a carreira e a vida de outras mulheres. Quando eu falo de inclusão, acho que a gente fala sempre de ESG, e a gente está falando de diversidade, de inclusão, de sustentabilidade. E para falar dessas coisas, a minha história começa com preconceito. Foi aí que eu entendi que precisava falar de diversidade. E um preconceito diferente. Eu tive um primeiro câncer há 15 anos atrás. Vieram outros depois, mas eu tive um primeiro câncer há 15 anos atrás. E as pessoas tinham sempre um diagnóstico. Esse é um problema emocional, você está doente das suas emoções. Porque o câncer é uma doença que a gente faz. Quando eu entendi que isso era preconceito, era alguém diagnosticando a minha vida e me dizendo o que eu tinha e qual era a cura que eu mesma precisava ter, eu entendi o que era preconceito. E nesse momento eu fui pedir desculpa às pessoas que eu não entendia que eram diferentes de mim. Uma delas era o meu irmão. E meu irmão é gay, foi a vida inteira e é. E eu, durante muitos momentos da minha vida, desejei que ele não existisse, porque ele não cabia no meu mundo. E desse momento em diante, eu entendi que as pessoas que são diferentes precisavam ser incluídas de alguma forma. E daí eu entendi o que era inclusão e o que era diversidade. E daí eu entendi que eu, como mulher branca, tinha uma série de privilégios que outras não tinham. E eu fui entender que o meu lugar de fala era muito superior a muitas outras que estavam em situações de risco muito diferentes das minhas. E que eu tinha preconceito. E que eu sofria preconceito e que eu tinha preconceito. Porque os tais vieses inconscientes sempre nos levam para lugares que a gente não sabe de onde surgiram, mas moram dentro de nós. E desse momento em diante eu mudei a minha vida e o meu negócio. Eu entendi que o meu único jeito de transformar o preconceito era incluindo as pessoas que precisavam de inclusão, sendo diversa e trazendo diversidade para a minha vida e para o meu negócio, e trabalhando com equidade. Nós não somos iguais aos homens e não queremos ser. Só precisamos das mesmas oportunidades, porque não viemos do mesmo lugar. E desse momento em diante, eu mudei todo o meu projeto de vida. O câncer me deu a bênção de ter um filho que não veio da minha barriga, porque eu não podia engravidar. Meu filho é negro, tem 15 anos, 1,83 m, lindo, lindo, muito lindo, meu filho. Através dele eu consegui entender o que era esse processo de gestacionar fora da barriga, porque nós mulheres podemos ter filhos de todos os tipos. Nesse momento eu entendi que para o meu negócio eu precisava de gente diferente de mim. Então trabalhar a criatividade com diversidade é um jeito de fazer o processo ser melhor. E eu entendi que eu podia dar voz à minha voz, falando com outras pessoas. Hoje eu estou presidente do Conselho de Empresárias da We Connect International, uma grande honra e um grande privilégio poder representar a We Connect International. Agradeço especialmente a Luciana, que está aqui hoje, que é diretora do programa da We Connect no Brasil. A Priscila, que é uma empresária certificada, que também veio me acompanhar e está aqui com a gente hoje. estávamos juntas em Nashville, todas nós. Também estou hoje no Comitê de Presidentes do Fórum de Empresas LGBTQIA+. Também sou do Conselho do Integrare, que trabalha com recortes de compras com afrodescendentes, com indígenas e pessoas com deficiência. E também sigo nesse mesmo propósito como autora da minha vida, trazendo diversidade, inclusão e sustentabilidade para todos os processos, entendendo que nós não viemos do mesmo lugar. A nossa linha de partida não é igual. Nós temos preconceitos dentro de nós que a gente não sabe nem quais são. Mas se olharmos a nossa vida, vamos ver que não partimos do mesmo lugar. Eu estudei num colégio particular. Eu sou filha de pais brancos, de uma família estruturada, onde os pais ficaram juntos até a morte do meu pai. Eu sou bem casada, tenho um relacionamento estável. Construí uma empresa há 25 anos atrás. Todas essas características da minha pessoa me fazem saber que eu não vim do mesmo lugar. De uma mulher que nasceu na periferia, filha de pais pretos, que nasceu preta, que tem uma pele diferente da minha, que por isso as pessoas acham que ela é menor do que eu. Que tem filhos na periferia, que tem medo de sair de casa, com medo de serem mortos se forem passear no shopping. Todos esses lugares que não me fazem ser igual, me trazem a responsabilidade de fazer diferente. Porque se nós não tivermos as mesmas oportunidades de saída, nós precisamos ter as mesmas oportunidades durante a vida. E o meu papel é trazer oportunidade, dando voz a quem precisa.
Obrigada, Mônica. Thank you for this. I think it's interesting to see the contrast, right, between also your experience, your journey, and your journey, Sara, in Canada, Brazil. I think we see drastically the differences. I'm going to ask maybe a question, to maybe get into a little bit more of the business environment and how you see sort of the biggest barriers that woman-owned businesses are facing in Canada, and in Canada, starting with Sara, and in Brazil, Mônica, if you could address that would be fantastic.
So great, thank you. I'll start, but I just want to say that you raise a very important point around privilege and around using platforms, using the voice that we have, the positions that we have achieved, and the status that we have achieved, to also support others and to bring them into the spaces that we are in as well. And I think that's such an important point. So thank you for making it. I realize also every day how privileged I am to be Anglophone, because that's it makes a big difference to be white, to have grown up in a country like Canada with kind of endless opportunity. It is a tremendous privilege, and not everybody has that. So you asked in terms of the kind of bigger barriers facing women. We talk about the Brazil-Canada space, but actually I think this is probably universal. What I hear from women, and I don't have to make this up because we have empirical evidence that shows that what I hear from women all over the world. I heard it in Nashville. I was there too. We didn't know, but we were both in Nashville at the same time for that We Connect, We Bank conference, and it was amazing. Yes. So many women there working together, but I heard it there too. Access to financing, access to networks, access to mentorship, all the huge responsibilities that women still have to carry on the family side, much more than men. And COVID exacerbated a lot of those inequalities in the space. There were advantages to being home and working from home. For myself, it was, I could throw a lasagna in the oven you know, and dinner was ready in much less time than, you know, waiting for me to come back from work. I traveled less, obviously. I didn't travel anywhere for 2 years. And that made me more available for my family, but it also allowed me to do work in different ways. And this kind of virtual space has opened up a lot of doors too. So there are advantages, but there are also disadvantages, and women in particular, when the children were home, or when the family obligations entered the picture, it was a disproportionate burden on them. I know some of our locally engaged women. So we in my organization, we have 1,500 trade commissioners who are in 160 locations around the world. And so very, very diverse cultures. And we needed to understand the impact of some of their realities, especially in the pandemic. So one example, I remember talking to our team in India, and they were having, the woman trade commissioner was having trouble staying on calls, because she would get on a call, but because she's at home and they often live in a multi-generational family, if father-in-law wanted a cup of tea, she had to get off the call and stop working to make the cup of tea for father-in-law, you know, and so then, you know, we're on an international call. She's trying to connect businesses, and she's like, excuse me, I have to go. I can't stay. So really, those were enormous challenges, enormous burdens, things that were maybe not visible to everyone at the same time. So I can see that. But going back to, so COVID had some very particular challenges, but going back to these questions of networks and mentors and financing. So there was a study, somebody was telling me, there was a study done. They took a business plan, and a woman went into several financial institutions to present this business plan. 30% of the time, the woman got the financing. Man went in with the exact same business plan. 60% of the time, he gets the financing. Why? Why is that? You know, we have to do better. We have to do better. It's what were the factors that you know, that created that situation? Networks. We talk about, we connect. Monica and I were talking just as we were coming into the room about the fact that we belong to several networks, particularly supporting women. I belong to a number of these groups, and those networks are really important. We have to kind of help build those networks, help connect people, help make it easier. You know, Canadian women coming to Brazil need to understand not just the operating environment in Brazil, but what is it like to be a woman entrepreneur in Brazil? That's also special and different. Same for Brazilian women who want to come to Canada. We want to help make that easier for the women as well, right? There's much more to the picture than just the trade and investment business aspects of it. Particularly, I'll just say a couple of things. I know we'll talk a little bit more about kind of roles and in supporting, but because I'm looking down the table at another Monica for EDC, some of our institutions are thinking very much EDC and BDC, which is the Business Development Bank of Canada. So the same as Bienvenidos. And who I met yesterday, wonderful programs and supports, also thinking about how they can support women entrepreneurs better, have dedicated funds, dedicated supports. My organization has dedicated funding and dedicated support teams to help women entrepreneurs access the financing, reach those networks, and feel that they are supported in going international with their business. So those are some of the things we think about.
Aqui no Brasil, os dados mostram que as mulheres empreendem para alimentar os filhos. Nós criamos negócios para poder alimentar a família. E mais que isso, era para ajudar o marido a sustentar a casa. Nós entendemos, durante toda a vida, que nós precisávamos ajudar alguém a cuidar da nossa casa, a prover alimento para os nossos filhos. E como o mercado é muito preconceituoso quanto às mulheres, era mais fácil empreender do que pedir emprego. E por isso nós vemos um número tão grande de empreendedoras no Brasil. Principalmente no setor de serviços, porque é o que a gente foi acostumada a fazer. Então, tem mulheres que cozinham, fazem marmitas, tem mulheres que abrem escolas, aquelas coisas que eram comuns ao universo feminino, são os maiores centros de empreendedorismo feminino no Brasil. Mas isso mudou, porque hoje a gente emprega os maridos nos empreendimentos que nós fizemos. Hoje nós não temos mais a obrigação de ajudar alguém. Hoje, eu sempre digo que se todo mundo mora na mesma casa, a responsabilidade de lavar a louça é de todo mundo. Ninguém precisa me ajudar, porque se todo mundo mora na mesma casa, a gente se ajuda. E eu não preciso de ajuda, nós precisamos de ajuda para gerir uma casa que moramos. Quando a gente fala de mulheres em finanças, o número não mudou nos últimos 10 anos. 9% das posições de liderança, ligados a finanças é de 9%. São 9 mulheres que cuidam de finanças de grandes empresas nos últimos 10 anos. Isso não mudou. Por quê? Porque nós não nos vemos como pessoas que gostam de números. São poucas as mulheres que assumem que gostam de números, porque nós passamos a vida sendo educadas para cuidar de coisas de casa e que não eram relacionadas aos números. O que tem mudado? O nosso apetite pela vida. Descobrir que a gente pode outras coisas. Vou usar o exemplo da minha empresa para explicar um pouco sobre esse preconceito e como é que nós avançamos. Nas Olimpíadas, em 2016, no Brasil, eu fui para Londres por um programa do governo brasileiro para treinar empresas de eventos para poderem atuar nas Olimpíadas, e eu fiquei em Londres 20 dias, sendo treinada, ganhando uma certificação internacional para realizar grandes eventos. Nesse processo, nós ganhamos uma concorrência para atender uma empresa japonesa no Brasil, durante todo o período das Olimpíadas. Foi um projeto de 1 ano e meio para a construção do espaço deles e todo o processo de atendimento aos atletas. E a primeira vez que esse presidente dessa empresa de artigos esportivos chegou no Brasil, eu encontrei com ele no Rio de Janeiro para poder mostrar o local onde iriam acontecer as coisas. E ele perguntou para o presidente do Brasil: onde está o homem? Quem é o homem com quem nós vamos conversar? E a minha resposta foi: sou eu. Não tem mais ninguém aqui na empresa que possa conversar com você que não seja eu. Então, a forma com que você vai me tratar é uma escolha sua, mas sou eu. Ficamos grandes amigos, a gente conversa até hoje pelo Instagram, e ficamos muito amigos depois de um ano e meio de trabalho juntos. Para mim ficou o paradigma de que ainda querem falar com homens, e para ele ficou o paradigma de que as mulheres são tão capazes quanto os homens. Ele talvez vai entender com o tempo que podemos ser melhores, inclusive. Mas esse é o tempo. Durante a pandemia, nós tivemos que reinventar tudo. Eu tenho uma empresa de eventos. Pensa, uma empresa de eventos na pandemia fechou as portas fisicamente e a gente teve que mudar o nosso negócio. Eu tenho uma equipe de liderança muito importante, tenho aqui 2 pessoas queridas, a Renata e a Mariane aqui comigo. Nós tivemos 30 dias para poder mudar o site, descobrir quais eram os novos produtos, os novos serviços e mais, discutir com o banco o que ele poderia dar de crédito para a gente. porque é uma empresa de serviços com um mercado onde estava tudo parado, a gente não fazia eventos, como é que você pede crédito? E sendo mulher? Nós, de fato, não sabemos nem preencher aquelas planilhas todas e aqueles documentos todos, mas mais do que isso, nós não acreditamos que podemos ter crédito. Começa em nós a dúvida, será que eu vou conseguir pagar? Os homens naturalmente não têm essa dúvida, eles dizem, vou pegar o empréstimo, vou fazer. Para a gente fica a pergunta, mas será que eu posso? Daí você já chega desacreditado na frente do gerente do banco, dizendo que você precisa de dinheiro. E por isso que eu digo sempre que eu preciso dar a voz, porque isso acontece com a gente. A minha empresa ficou 8 meses sem faturar uma nota fiscal. 8 meses. Sem demitir pessoas. Nós conseguimos manter as pessoas. Mas a gente precisou refazer todo o negócio. Um negócio que era presencial 100% do tempo, passou a ser digital, o nome que a gente deu. Porque a gente teve que criar produtos online para que as coisas acontecessem. Como esse evento, a gente tem pessoas aqui nos assistindo em outros lugares e nós aqui presencialmente. A gente, em muito pouco tempo, teve que adaptar o negócio, criar novos serviços, criar novas estratégias, subir novos produtos para o site e vender um negócio que a gente nunca tinha feito. Quando a gente decidiu ir para o Canadá, nós estamos fazendo a mesma coisa. A gente está reproduzindo esse modelo. Fazer diferente. Porque, culturalmente, as pessoas são criadas de formas diferentes e compram serviços de forma diferente. Então, essa adaptação cultural necessária, nós fomos treinados para ela durante a pandemia, porque nós tivemos que refazer tudo. Conseguimos, sim, crédito, conseguimos provar, mas para poder ter crédito, eu tive que colocar os meus bens pessoais como garantia. Porque era o único jeito de conseguir crédito sendo mulher e de uma empresa de eventos onde o mercado não tinha para onde ir naquele momento. Mas conseguimos o crédito necessário para não demitir pessoas e continuar trabalhando. Nós já saímos do Brasil como MCM para os Estados Unidos já a primeira vez, já faz 5 anos que nós estamos lá, e agora 1 ano na operação canadense. O que é legal descobrir que mulheres podem fazer, inclusive transações internacionais, que mulheres podem abrir os seus negócios em outros lugares, porque nós temos a essência do negócio. Nós sabemos fazer. A gente só precisa acreditar que a gente sabe. As barreiras continuam existindo lá e aqui, eu não vejo nenhuma grande diferença. Eu entendo que no Canadá, a economia sendo mais estável do que a nossa, é mais fácil você operar. Porque você tem menos instabilidades de governo, menos instabilidades da moeda, então é mais fácil de operar com previsibilidade, e aqui no Brasil nós não temos essa previsibilidade, a gente mata um leão por dia, com todas as incertezas que a gente sabe que vive. Mas os grupos de mulheres são esse apoio necessário. Eu estou em tantos grupos, por quê? Porque eu realmente acredito que esse é um jeito da gente aprender. Esse ouvido atento a outras realidades, ao problema da outra mulher que está fazendo negócio, me melhora, me prepara melhor para o mercado. Então, por isso que a gente divide tanto. E esse é um privilégio do feminino, dividir.
Obrigada, Mônica. I think I'm going to just maybe change a little bit the different questions, because I think, Mônica, I would like to ask you, following on what you were saying, because we noticed, and we talked about it with colleagues as well, that, you know, we're all here, pretty much women together. So yes, you know, making sure that we're together and we help each other and we support each other and we, you know, we bring this forward. But how do we convince, because we're all convinced, right? How do we convince other people to change the mentality? Because that's what you started with in Brazil. It's also, it has to do with changing the way we see things, right? Changing the mentality of the woman, but also of other people to see us differently. How do you have like some dicas on this to share with us? And then I'll go back to you, Sara, with something different.
Nós temos muito privilégio de ser mulheres, nós nos adaptamos bem. Nós criamos filhos e que passam pela nossa vida durante muito tempo. Meu filho hoje tem 15, mas ele já teve 1 ano, já foi bebê, foi quando nós nos conhecemos, e ele chorava e não sabia se comunicar. Depois ele começou a fase dos porquês, aos 6 anos, me perguntando sobre tudo. E hoje ele acha que ele é melhor que todos nós juntos com os 15. Nós nos adaptamos. Esse é um privilégio do feminino. Nós nos fazemos adaptáveis a todo e qualquer processo, porque isso é inerente ao ser mulher. Nós nos adaptamos. Aqui no Brasil, a gente é treinado para ser muita coisa. Diferente de outros lugares onde as coisas são mais estáveis, né? Eu lembro quando nós começamos a fazer negócio com os Estados Unidos, e eles diziam, você não pode fazer isso porque isso é uma outra empresa quem tem que fazer. Você pode fazer até aqui, daqui para frente você não pode, porque você não pode tirar o lugar da outra empresa de trabalhar. E aqui no Brasil a gente faz tudo, do início ao fim, né? A gente trabalha 12, 14, 16 horas por dia e a gente se adapta a tudo. Eu diria que a grande dica é estar aberto a mudanças. Você estar em outro país não te dá a certeza de que o que você faz aqui vai dar certo lá. Então, você precisa estar aberto a toda e qualquer mudança. E o feminino, as mulheres têm essa capacidade com muito mais facilidade do que os homens. Porque nós nos adaptamos a vida inteira. Então, é mais fácil para a gente arriscar, estar numa outra geografia, num outro país, fazendo coisas diferentes, porque nós fazemos coisas diferentes todos os dias. Na pandemia, nós voltamos para casa. Eu também fiquei com o escritório fechado, também voltei para casa. Meu marido é músico, maestro de orquestra sinfônica, ficamos todos em casa, eu, ele, meu filho, 2 cachorros. A gente teve que adaptar o nosso modelo de vida, porque a gente nem se conhecia tanto assim. Porque nós não ficamos em casa o tempo todo juntos. Cada um tem a sua vida profissional. De repente, ficamos os 3. Nós tivemos que adaptar o nosso casamento para dar certo. E essa capacidade de adaptação é o que faz com que a mulher consiga chegar em lugares muito maiores. A gente só precisa acreditar nisso, porque nós temos muito mais capacidade de adaptação para mercado, para serviço, para comércio, porque nós nascemos adaptáveis.
Obrigada. Sara, do you want to react to what I was saying earlier, maybe on how to move forward? And then I want to know a little bit about how diversity and inclusion is part of the organization we work for as well, and how we're trying to change things as well, right, within the organization.
Sure. Look, really quickly, your point about adaptability, 100%. I also have a 15-year-old son. So I know what that looks like. I have a 13-year-old daughter too. So, so there's a little balance there. But, you know, if I can just take adaptability and translate it to resilience, I think that's the other side of the coin, if you will. Incredible resilience. And when we think about where we are in the global community right now, resilience is what is needed. That resilience is what is needed everywhere right now. Every country, and I know this from, you know, our government, every country is looking right now at where their vulnerabilities are, because we've gone through such an incredible time. We continue to go through an incredible time because of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and the consequences of that in energy insecurity and food insecurity around the world, you know, have been felt. And so that, you know, that has created a certain paradigm that was on top of what was already happening in climate change, and an intense need to figure out what is vulnerable, what is critical, and how do you build resilience into what is critical. So there is a tremendous amount to be drawn from the adaptable female woman experience in building resilient structures going forward, I think. So that's the one piece I would sort of take from that. But in terms of the organization, again, back to what can governments do? And I'm loving this back and forth, because you have the private sector experience, the need to, as you said, like easier to start a business than to work elsewhere. I've never worked outside of government, but I always work with business. So I always think about, how does government support entrepreneurs, businesses, and particularly diverse-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, but more than that now, diversity, so much more than just the women, as you talked about at the beginning, LGBTQ plus and Indigenous in Canada. We have an enormous conversation going on around Indigenous reconciliation. What does that mean? How do we create opportunities, and how do we learn to walk together through the world? And there's just a lot to unpack in that. We're learning. I'm learning all the way along through this, and I think, I'm very happy that my organization is also continuing to learn, to adapt, to change, and to try and build resilience. But what can governments do? So we can create frameworks, right? So international frameworks that support diversity and inclusion. The government that we have right now, with the Liberal Party of Canada and Justin Trudeau as the Prime Minister, with Mary Ng as our Minister for International Trade. She has a much longer title like mine. I'll just shorten it to Minister for International Trade. But they talk very openly and from the beginning about inclusion, about sharing in the benefits of trade, and about not, I think she refers to sort of not leaving half of the team on the bench. That more people have to participate in, and that will, there are facts and data that supports that greater inclusion brings greater growth and benefits to the economy that are broader than just for those individuals participating. So I think we need to bring in those frameworks into other spaces. We do gender-based analysis for all of our trade agreements. All of our trade agreements now include inclusive elements that support greater inclusion in the international space. We have a feminist foreign policy, which extends into international development, and we look at the lens of this as a whole. Specifically in my organization, for the last 25 years, we have had a Business Women in International Trade program. But it has really taken off. We have increased the number of women-owned businesses that my organization, the Trade Commissioner Service, serves by almost 60% in the last 5 years alone. So I think that really speaks to the growth in interest and the opportunity. As I mentioned, I think a couple of funding programs we have. One is called Can Export. We also pay, so this is a co-funding program. Women can apply and they can receive government grants to give them funding to visit foreign trade shows or to markets, to go to markets and see what opportunities are out there. They can use it also to get certified through organizations like We Connect and We Bank, and they can get a certification of a woman-owned business, pay for it through that. All kinds of things. We run specific cohorts. We've run women-only trade missions, many women-only trade missions, it's kind of like this room, very supportive at being together and having those conversations, the benefits of sharing those experiences. We run Canadian tech accelerators, which are can take tech entrepreneurs and give them an intensive exposure into different markets around the world. We have many of these running in a number of different sectors, and we do women-only cohorts. We've done Indigenous cohorts. We've done LGBTQ2+ cohorts. It's amazing how when you bring the communities together, that it creates a even greater sort of buzz and benefit. So there's a lot, and this is all part and parcel of the Government of Canada's women's entrepreneurship strategy as well, which is a $7 billion, which is an enormous amount of money, to support access to that financing, those networks, and that expertise. And there is so much more to talk about, but it really is a whole of government approach to how do we create an ecosystem that supports diversity and inclusion.
Eu posso completar uma coisa? Completar um adendo sobre essa pergunta que a gente está falando sobre o acesso do governo. A realidade brasileira, nesse aspecto, é muito distante da realidade canadense. E ter um negócio lá é quase um sonho, porque a gente tem expectativa quase que nenhuma de que o governo vá fazer alguma coisa, porque no Brasil, por conta das políticas econômicas que nós temos durante muitos anos, desde o processo da colonização, nós não confiamos no governo. Nós não confiamos que o governo possa fazer alguma coisa por nós. A população periférica tem o governo como única possibilidade, e que bom que existe para poder atender essa população. Mas a classe média, nós temos que colocar, nós optamos por ensinar os nossos filhos em colégios particulares, nós pagamos o plano de saúde particular, nós temos uma vida que nós não podemos confiar no que o governo vai entregar. Então, quando eu ouvi a primeira vez a doutora Heather no meu escritório me contando do que poderia acontecer, de acesso a mercados, de quanto o governo canadense poderia nos ajudar a ter um negócio no Canadá, eu quase chorei de emoção. Porque aqui a gente tem que fazer tudo. Eu não posso simplesmente hoje depender do SUS para vacina, eles foram incríveis, mas eu não posso depender, eu tenho muitos problemas de saúde. Já sofri muitas cirurgias, eu não posso depender do plano de saúde hoje do governo, porque eu vou perder o prazo da cirurgia e provavelmente o câncer vai comer outro pedaço. Meu filho, para ele poder ter acesso hoje a outros mercados e poder estudar em outros lugares, eu preciso pagar um colégio particular. Então, ouvir vocês falando sobre o que o governo entrega hoje para uma mulher, para as empresárias, é quase um sonho. E é emocionante, porque é muito distante daquilo que nós vivemos todos os dias no Brasil.
And I think if I may, thank you for these great comments to both of you, and we'll continue with the discussion. It's so interesting that the time is flying, so we need to maybe open for the group here. But I would like to ask maybe Gracia to talk a little bit about some initiatives that we see also in Brazil, and I understand it is very different. And here it's private sector, it's you yourself, you're doing it, you're making it happening. I think in Canada as well, but we have a lot of support. But I think there are some initiatives as well in Brazil, right? And I think I would like to ask Gracia to maybe mention a little bit the local perspective and what Fiesp is doing to support the industries in that sense.
Thank you so much. Do you hear?
Not a microphone, but I listen.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Right.
I speak in Portuguese, sorry. Eu sou Gracia Fragalá, né? Eu sou vice-presidente do Conselho Superior Feminino da Fiesp e agradeço muito pela oportunidade de comentar com vocês o que nós temos feito na Fiesp para trazer os negócios um pouco mais próximos, né, de incentivar mulheres a empreender, a fazer os seus negócios com menos barreiras, como foi apresentado aqui. Eu queria comentar um pouquinho como é a estrutura hoje, né, como é a governança dentro da casa e onde o Conselho Superior Feminino se encaixa, né? A Fiesp, como vocês sabem, é uma entidade sindical, né? Então, muitas vezes, pelo tamanho, pela potência, a gente esquece que ela é uma entidade sindical, formada por sindicatos patronais. Então, um sindicato eleito, né? E muitas vezes as pessoas perguntam por que a Fiesp tem tão poucas mulheres? Porque por conta de toda essa realidade, né, que a Mônica já trouxe tão bem, as mulheres brasileiras, elas estão ainda pouco na política, seja a política partidária, seja a política sindical. Então, quando as mulheres empreendem e elas são donas dos seus próprios negócios, elas estão cuidando dos seus próprios negócios e elas acabam não se envolvendo na vida associativa. E, por conta disso, elas acabam não sendo presidentes dos seus sindicatos e aí não são eleitas para a Fiesp, né? Então, a representação feminina dentro da casa é muito pequena, né? E nós estamos lá como um conselho justamente para fazer essa discussão. Então, a estrutura é uma diretoria eleita, né, de presidentes de sindicatos, tem toda uma regra para você ser eleito, porém, essa diretoria compõe os conselhos superiores, que são formados pela sociedade civil, por membros da sociedade civil, para discutir temas diversos. Todos esses conselhos são formados por voluntários, né? Então, toda a nossa atividade lá é uma atividade voluntária. A gente tem um corpo funcional, aí sim, de profissionais, que são os departamentos e os comitês. Então, a função dos conselhos superiores é desenhar estratégia, aconselhar a diretoria, aconselhar o presidente nos seus temas de responsabilidade. E a função dos departamentos e dos comitês é desdobrar essas estratégias para os sindicatos e para as empresas. Como Conselho Superior Feminino, o que nós fazemos? Nós fazemos isso no recorte das questões femininas para a indústria. Lembrando que a gente é uma federação de indústrias do Estado de São Paulo. Claro que a gente não fica só restrito à indústria, porque a mulher está inserida no contexto da sociedade. E o que acontece conosco dentro do setor produtivo na indústria é um reflexo de tudo que acontece na sociedade mais ampla. Então, a gente discute isso também. Porém, nós temos eixos de atuação muito definidos. Nós temos 3 grandes eixos de atuação, né? Nós trabalhamos com inclusão produtiva de mulheres, com um recorte forte para a inclusão digital feminina. A gente trabalha com empreendedorismo feminino, ações para fomentar o empreendedorismo feminino e transversalmente buscando redução de desigualdades. Esse é o mote de todas as ações que a gente faz. Então, é procurar mulheres em situação de vulnerabilidade para que a gente possa atuar. Dentro dessas principais estratégias de intervenção, a gente tem alguns programas, né? Eu vou destacar alguns muito rapidamente aqui para depois a gente poder abrir para uma conversa. Um programa que eu tenho muito carinho, porque, né, eles dizem lá que eu sou a mãe do programa, é o Elas na Indústria, porque é um programa para 3 eixos também. Mulheres na operação industrial, se eu disse que a indústria ainda é predominantemente masculina, né? E por isso as mulheres não chegam nem a presidências dos sindicatos, nem a ser donas de empresa, a gente precisa trazer a mulher para dentro da operação industrial, e não apenas para aquelas atividades de suporte, né? A gente fez um levantamento recente, depois eu compartilho com vocês, as mulheres estão em serviços gerais, né? Em RH, no jurídico, né? No marketing. Ou seja, de novo, como a Mônica falou, nas atividades que são permitidas para as mulheres. E a gente quer mulheres em outras áreas. Então, o programa tem esse eixo. Mulheres em situação próximas a alcançar postos de liderança, então, postos que precedem a postos de liderança, ou mulheres em liderança para alcançar postos de C-level. A gente oferece mentoria para esse grupo, mentorias gratuitas, para esse grupo de mulheres. E mulheres empreendedoras, né? Para mulheres donas dos seus próprios negócios, que a gente tem uma parceria com o Sebrae para financiamento, para capacitação e para outros programas do governo que fomentam e, inclusive, auxiliam na obtenção de crédito e tudo isso, para que elas possam efetivamente gerir os seus negócios. Na questão digital, a gente tem uma jornada de transformação digital que a Fiesp está patrocinando para micro e pequenas indústrias, e a gente está trabalhando no recorte feminino, como trazer as mulheres e os negócios de mulheres para este programa da jornada de transformação digital. E a menina dos meus olhos, porque eu sou assistente social de formação, é a parceria que a gente fez com o governo, Mônica. Então, assim, tem algumas boas notícias acontecendo, porque nessa linha de redução das desigualdades, a gente está fazendo uma parceria com o Ministério do Desenvolvimento Social para que todos os projetos que nós formos desenvolver para mulheres na indústria, a gente tenha a parceria do Senai, que para nós é imprescindível, né? Que é um braço da indústria, quem está no Brasil conhece, mas só para esclarecer, é um braço da indústria que faz a capacitação técnica, a preparação da mão de obra técnica para o trabalho na indústria. E é financiado pela indústria. Muita gente acha que o Sistema S é público. Não é público. Somos nós, indústria, que recolhemos esse valor na folha de pagamento. Então, é a indústria que mantém o Sistema S. Então, parceria com o Sistema S para capacitação, mas o governo vai nos disponibilizar o CAD único, ou seja, todas as mulheres que estão inscritas nos programas sociais do governo, para que a gente possa ter uma porta de saída que a gente chama ao Bolsa Família, né? Então, no estado de São Paulo, nós seremos parceiros estratégicos do governo para que os nossos programas tragam essa ajuda para ser uma porta de saída pela indústria, que é um emprego ainda que melhor remunera, que traz mais qualificação, e trabalhamos com populações migrantes, refugiados, né? Todas as populações em situação de vulnerabilidade, e agora as populações do CAD único. Eu me excedi um pouquinho no que a gente combinou, mas acho que eu dei uma visão mais geral do que a gente tem feito lá na Fiesp. Obrigada pela oportunidade, viu?
Now, Kedia, I wanted to give the opportunity to see a bit of, and it's a small, I mean, it's a big example, but there are probably other examples as well that exist. But thank you so much, Gracia, for that comment. I'm moving forward, and I wanted to ask Bernadette. Bernadette is the head of and I'll transform the title. I like to transform titles. So she's the head of the Atlantic chapter for the Brasil-Canadá Chamber of Commerce. Taking your point, Sara, when you mentioned the challenge of working with the culturally diverse group of the TCS around the world, I think I would like to ask Bernadette to talk a little bit about this challenge of working in intercultural business environments as a female entrepreneur, because Canada is also very diverse, right? And so if you may, Bernadette, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is my mic on?
No.
No.
Yes? No? It's going to be?
Move it a little bit closer, maybe.
Assim?
Yes.
Tá melhor?
Yeah.
Eu vou falar em inglês, porque o meu sotaque é português de Portugal. Eu quero que vocês me percebem. Ora bem, so good morning, everybody, and bonjour à tout le monde, and thank you very much for having me here. When I got the opportunity from BCCC, which we are co-chairs of the Atlantic Chamber, and my colleague here, Fernanda, is also a co-chair of the British Columbia Chamber. And so we are really representing the entire country.
Coast to
coast.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that.
And so I took that opportunity because I'm very passionate, not as passionate as I find the women in Brazil. This is my first time. And I got very emotional hearing Monica's story, and you as well. Like it's very empowering in itself. And when we look to how do we empower other women, I think it really comes from us to how we've been empowered, how we've been inspired, and we can move that forward. And so for me, yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur, and how I got there, I don't want to bore you with all the details, but how I got there was having spent 19 years in telecom, which in Canada we refer to as the old boys network. And you know, and really, I mean, it's been around. Infrastructure, telephony, telecom has been around for so long that it really was built by men, but they weren't very good at making space for women. And so I spent 19 years there in increasingly progressive jobs. But I left after 19 years. They offered an early retirement package, and I took it because I wanted to see, well, what's it like everywhere else in other industries and in other countries. And so in addition to being a woman, and in addition to being an entrepreneur now, I'm also an immigrant to Canada. And so for me, I had some challenges. It wasn't easy. But so I started going, after I took my early retirement, I started going to other industries and other countries. And I went to Guatemala and El Salvador. And that was very eye-opening, because when we think about being privileged to have those opportunities, in Guatemala, like it's quite patriarchal. And so for us, it was hard to be there in that kind of male-dominated environment, both socially and economically. So I moved along pretty quickly. Within 6 years, I went to El Salvador as well and found the same thing. I went to Ireland, and surprisingly, there were the women that were there in senior positions like vice president, which I ended up being, didn't last. Like they couldn't handle the I guess the male dominated environment there either. So, and that came as a shock to me, because we expect Ireland not to be that way. And so then I went to Trinidad and Tobago. So it just kept getting worse, to tell you the truth. And all of that kind of reinforced to me that maybe I can make a bigger difference being out of corporate and maybe into a more like an environment where I have more opportunity to change the system, I'll call it. And so I became an international trade. Well, having all those international opportunities really was the catalyst for me to become involved in international trade. And I started my company incorporated in Canada. I do have an office in Portugal, and we work with a lot of opportunities I started out in investment attraction. So it's an economic development, but also social development, which is so important. And I started out with investment attraction. I also worked, and where I met the Trade Commissioner Service, by the way, and that's where I found that all of those intercultural challenges that I was having in my journey would have been made so much easier if I had the Trade Commissioner Service, because I was really kind of fighting a battle, you know, with the environment, with the ecosystem. And so then I also just started working with government to support companies and support companies in other markets. So again, working with the Trade Commissioner Service. And I just became in love with that whole environment, because we had a little bit more control. We had a lot more support. And that's where I ended up, and then kind of moved into more social aspect of it and work with women now. With the newcomer women, I really support immigrant women, especially. Also, in addition to the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce in Atlantic Canada, I also am on the New Brunswick Business Immigrant Association, of which many are women, and also the Federation of Portuguese Canadian Business Professionals. So I really have like that, you know, platform in which to inspire others and empower others. And in January, I don't want to brag, but it's just so relevant to what we're talking about. In January, I received top 10 most inspiring immigrants. There were only 10, but there are many more in the region in Atlantic Canada. And now I'm a finalist for the Canadian Immigrants Top 25. But sorry, Thank you. But for me, it's just like, it gets me a little bit emotional because I thought, wow, if I can do it, like everybody else, there's so many out there so I've been hoping that is now a catalyst for others to do that. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And thank you very much for
Thank you,
having me.
Bernadette. And I think it's a great example of what we were talking at the beginning, right? How the support, the network that you contribute a lot to that. So thank you for that, Bernadette. I'm cautious of time, but I want to give a few minutes to Monica Bush, Regional Director for EDC, working with us in the consulate, but representing Export Development Canada to talk a little bit about what EDC is doing in more details, because Sara, you mentioned a few things as well. Over to you, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. So for those of you who are not very familiar with EDC, we are Canada's export credit agency. The government of Canada is our sole shareholder, and our core mission is to provide support to Canadian exporters and investors doing business internationally. So having started like that, I want to acknowledge in front of everybody that I admit I like numbers and financing. I've been working in financial institutions for many years. I'm not going to tell how many, but the truth is financial institutions do have a very important role to play. And more than this, they have the responsibility to use their power of influence, let's put it this way, so that we can help change the world for better. So EDC has started its journey in diversity and inclusion many years ago. And at this point, we are at the stage that we have an inclusive trade strategy that is a key part of our corporate strategy. That means that we have a separate group that actually takes care of business from equity-seeking groups, as we call them, including business that are owned or led C-suite by women. So, and why is a strategy relevant? Because quite frankly, if we just treat those equity-seeking groups as usual business, we were failing actually to address their needs. So we changed, we pivoted towards being very specific for them. We have teams that take care of women-led and owned business, as well as Indigenous and Black and racialized groups as well. So this is part of our journey evolution, so to speak. What is ultimately our goal? Our goal is really to make it easier, faster, and better for those groups to access the tools they need, being it knowledge through our partners. We partner with the TCS, we partner with BDC, we partner with the chambers, with CCC, with Startup Canada, with several other entities that are among our partners to drive more value to them. And EDC has a hard goal to achieve a target of approximately $2 billion this year in terms of business facilitated for those groups. So it's very serious. It's one of our targets. And at the end of the year, if we don't get there, so nobody gets bonus in headquarters. No, I'm joking, but seriously, it is a hard goal for all of us. It's in our performance plans, etc. So we take it very, very serious. And I would just like to finish by sharing with you a real story of a company that used these services. They've been part of our initiative since 2018. And right now, they started doing business in 2016, I think. It's called Lulu Lollipop. It's a company from Vancouver. So they participated in EDC's accelerator program with our partners. In 2019, they were part of a trade connections event, and they were introduced to Alibaba, which was one of EDC's clients at the time. At the time, they were able to reach 3.5 million in revenues. That was 2019. So the engagement continued. We referred them to BDC. We provided a guarantee for BDC to extend a line of credit to them, because capital is one of their main obstacles, as was already mentioned. And by end of last year, they reached almost 11 million in revenues, because they were able to profit from international business. So we do have the power to promote more diversity and inclusion. We have to work together, leveraging all our tools and, you know, passing the ball to the partner and then picking it back and then to the other partner, because this is the way that we are gonna have a more equitable society. So thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Monica, and I
3
like the,
minutes.
yeah, thank you. I like the
Thank you.
connection between the different organizations. That's great. I realize we have 10 minutes time. I'm going to take a couple of, we're going to take a couple of questions, right? And if you in the room, maybe, and if online, we have some questions in the chat or comments. It doesn't have to be questions, can be comments from anybody around the table here. I hope you do have some. Daniela, okay.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I come at this.
Introduce yourself,
Oh,
please,
I'm sorry.
Daniela, just so we know.
Apologies. I'm Daniela Quinissa. I'm with Cisco Barrier. It's a Brazilian law firm. I'm also a member of the board of directors of CCBC. I've just joined as a member of the board of directors, and I'm delighted to be here. And thank you so much for everything that I've learned today. I come at this with a little bit of frustration. In 2001, I led Shell Southern Cone Gas and Power's diversity and inclusion program. And the discourse remains very similar as it has been for the past 20 years.
Mhm.
The evolution that we have made, I think, is not enough. I think that leaning in is not enough. We need to change the table. We need to change the room. We need to change the box. And I think that there's a special place for women in power, that not only do we need to support others, we need more allies. We need to be able to really make structural changes. And again, I come at this in frustration. I worked in the mining industry for a number of years. I continue to work in the mining industry, which has not developed accordingly to plan. And when we look at society and we look at the largest changes that the biggest challenges that we have, which is inequality and the climate crisis, if we as women and all of those that are diverse, that are different, if we are not part of the conversation, we're not gonna get through this, right? And this realization really has to come through in everything that we do. So I guess my question, after all of that, my question is just, where do we really get to see the change on the ground? Where are the metrics? I'm all for numbers. We need metrics. We need targets. We need critical mass. We need to really change the way that we do things. And how do we get there?
Sure. I mean, I like, yeah. Right. So I guess I live in a very more optimistic space, because I have seen change in the areas and the spaces that I've been part of. I've been doing this for 30 years. My first posting abroad was in Tokyo, in the late 90s. So I have some experience working with the Japanese as well. Very frequently, I was the only woman in a room who was not serving tea, and in very big rooms with hundreds and hundreds of Japanese businessmen. And I think that environment has changed. It's not fast enough. No. It's not fast enough. And you're absolutely right. The systems need to change. I think it starts with listening for what's different, because I think it's what somebody said along here. I don't remember if it was at Monica or not, but about the it's not the same, doing the same thing and saying the door is open also for women is not the same. It's not the same because the needs are different. So you have to hear, you have to listen and understand what those needs are that are different. And then how does the system need to change to support it? So again, I can talk about a personal reflection inside the government of Canada. When I first started as a diplomat, it was not long after women were it was not long after women had to quit if they got married. It was not long after women had to quit if they had children. And when I started, very often as a young woman, the men who were going to hire us to go abroad would look at you and they kind of judge your age, maybe a little, you look like you might go out and have a baby, and then that's going to be a problem for me. And then you're going to go away. And they would say those things to us. I'm not picking you for this assignment. You're going to go have a baby. They would actually say this to us, to our faces. Heather knows, you know, and what changed? I'll tell you what changed. And this is where I come at some of the framework pieces again for government. You know what changed? The law that allowed men to take parental leave. Mm-hmm. And then the men, the young men, became just as unreliable as the women. Fantastic. Now we're on an even playing field, right? So like and that's such a small change, but massive impact, right? It changed the game. So we have to hear it. We have to understand it. We have to see how those little adjustments and frameworks and you know, so can create different systems. But I mean, that's a very simplistic example. It isn't happening fast enough. We do need to force the issue. There are all kinds of initiatives around boards now too. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be transformational as well, to push and say, look, you want to have the, you need 50%, never mind 30. Now we're trying to get 30% on boards. Like, look out, guys. We should have 50 on the board. 50% on the board will change it. It will change. So anyway, these are, I think, but you know, these are the pieces. What I am hopeful about is what I see in the community around these kinds of conversations and people doing it differently. I'll stop there. That's.
Thank you, Sara. And I think Gracia, I think you wanted to react to that, and after that, sorry, I don't know your name.
My name is Cris Monteiro.
Prazer, vereadora, não?
Yes.
Sim, prazer. Ok.
Prazer.
Vamos começar com Graça e depois com você, Cris. Obrigada.
Muito rapidamente, né? Eu compartilho da sua angústia, porque eu também estou nessa luta há muito tempo, mas compartilho da Sara, dos muitos avanços que a gente já viu. E na minha fala eu quis falar muito rápido, e eu passei por duas coisas, sem comentar, que eu acho muito importantes da atuação da Fiesp, né? A gente tem um programa para mulher, maternidade e trabalho, porque é esse ponto que você colocou, né? Como é que a mulher entra ou não entra no mercado de trabalho em função das questões de maternidade, e o advocacy. A gente tem uma proximidade muito grande com os governos, e a gente coloca em todas as discussões a pauta feminina. Para você ter uma ideia, a discussão que a gente está fazendo agora é na reforma tributária, né? A gente trouxe a Tabata Amaral, que é a única deputada mulher na comissão que discute a reforma tributária, e aí todas as dificuldades para isso, a questão da representação feminina mais ampla. Mas por quê? Porque essa reforma, ela impacta principalmente, é uma reforma tributária do consumo, e o consumo impacta muito as mulheres. Então, o que a gente pode fazer lá? Esse tipo de advocacy, para chegar nisso que a Sara falou, que mudanças é possível introduzir em legislações e o tipo de transformação que a gente consegue fazer com os recursos que a gente tem. Então, acredito sim que pelo tempo que a gente luta por isso, né? E eu há mais tempo, talvez, de que quase todas vocês aqui, eu gostaria de ter visto muito mais avanços, mas por estar há tanto tempo, eu já vi muitos avanços. Então, creio que umas suportando as outras e ocupando esses espaços, por isso a Fiesp, para nós, é um espaço tão importante. Muito mais da quantidade de mulheres na indústria, porque a gente percebe uma desindustrialização do país, mas é pela voz, é pela força e é pelo tamanho do impacto que a gente pode causar. E essa parceria que a gente tem com todos os governos, né? Os anteriores, o anterior, inclusive, onde a gente tinha muita dificuldade para tratar de determinados temas, mesmo assim nós estávamos lá introduzindo esses temas, discutindo essa pauta, e agora com muito mais facilidade para conseguir pautar os temas que nos interessam. Então, acho que é importante pontuar que a gente tem essa força da entidade, né, conduzindo e apoiando nesses temas.
Obrigada, Graça. Cris Monteiro, desculpa que a gente, acho que a senhora entrou depois, então, she's councilwoman for the city of São Paulo. So that's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see your point of view on that specific matter. Por favor. Depois vou para a Patrícia, em quem você queria intervir? Depois vou falar com você, tá bom.
So thank you very much and good morning for everyone. I'm Cris Monteiro, as she said. I'm a councilwoman at the Câmara Municipal de São Paulo. We are 55 council people there and only 11 women. So I'll start with that. But to your point, I think I kind of agree with both of you. We have made progress. The thing, though, is I think as we progress, we see that we still have a lot to do because new things comes to the table, new things comes to the picture that we still need to work on very hard. I come from a time where the women had a baby and was coming back to the office and need to pump milk from their breast. They would have to go to the bathroom to do that and sit on the toilet to do that. And some of you, you know, I'm 61, so I've seen this. I haven't done because I don't have kids, but I've seen that. And this is still happening, but in some companies are no longer happening. So as we evolve, you know, the discussion comes to place and we see, oh my God, we can't have women, you know, pumping milk on the toilet. So this is a small example, right? And it comes to surface, so we still have to work on that. But I wanted to bring your attention to the political arena of all this. And I think Gracia has brought very, very well. Politics is influencing everybody's life. We started having discussion about women periods because we have women on Congress. Men don't have periods, so they can't think about that. It's not their fault. I used to say, men, they don't get together every day early in the morning and go to a space in the planet and said, let's just turmoil their life. This does not happen. They just don't know. And as we have women on this space, we're going to bring the subject and we're going to say, this is happening and we need to fix this. So Tabata Amaral, you know, and other women in Congress to say, we need to, you know, the women that they can't buy pads because they have periods and they think about it. And politics influence all our lives every day. And we as women, we tend to get away from that space. And I want to invite you all, don't leave this space open because it's being occupied, but people that do not know the issues and problems and challenges that we face. So I invite you, next time we have elections, choose a woman. You know, we have 51% of women population in this country and only 11% in the parliament, all of them, of women. Why is that? If we are 51%, we are not voting women because we don't believe we can represent ourselves. And this is impacting our day-to-day life. So I'll leave you with that, you know, as an invitation to please don't leave the space open. This is impacting your lives. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cris. Patricia, we're gonna close with Patricia. Well, we're gonna turn to Ronaldo after, but I think we're gonna finish as the last comment and question from Patricia here. Yes.
I'm not going to take much of your time. My name is Patricia Kobayashi. I'm the Executive Director of CAMP CCBC, the Center for Arbitration and Mediation of the Chamber of Commerce, Brasil-Canada. And let me share the experience of CAMP CCBC. It's a very small market still, and it was known to be dominated by male, pale, and stale. So they were all white professors from around the world dominating the market. But it is a small market that has done a lot of things. In 2018, CAMP CCBC approved an administrative resolution establishing that every activity of CAMP CCBC should have at least 30% of women representation, including the appointment of women arbitrators. So nowadays, actually in 2021, we have achieved parity among president and sole arbitrators, women. And we are on the verge of achieving parity in appointments of arbitrators in all our cases. Last year was 40%. It's all about metrics. I know. And we have published that administrative resolution establishing the 30%, and we publish the numbers every year in our facts and figures. And we don't sponsor any event without 30%. We don't support any event without 30%. And that, I guess, changed the market.
Great, thank you, Patricia. And I think, yeah, this is what we hear. No, it's kind of not forcing, but making sure that we are committed, and we it's like EDC saying you're not going to get it's something you need to have in. We do that in the TCS, but we need to be more, I think, more enforce more this thing. I would like to say thank you to the CCBC, to BCCC, to We Connect International, to these great women that we had as panelists, to the great people also around the table. And I want to ask Ronaldo to close this with, I would tell you, 2 minutes, because we're already late, but I know you can make it in 2 minutes. But thank you so much again for this great event. Thank you.
This always happens with me. I don't know why. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting used to it. So first of all, what a privilege for me to be here, right? What a privilege. I've been learning from each one of you, and I'm also been reflecting about lots of things and about my own preconceived ideas and my own paradigms. So if you allow me to turn into Portuguese, I'll just share my takeaways from this meeting, and wanted to again thank Heather, Sara, Anouk, and Monica for being here with us today, and for inviting me for this fantastic event. Yeah, I must tell you that I'm a different person now, and I want to share with I want to start with my own emotion, my own feeling right now is gratitude to every single one of you. As coisas que eu aprendi hoje, se eu puder, meus takeaways. Primeiro, compartilhar as nossas experiências pessoais, a nossa biografia, nos ajuda a reduzir distâncias, porque quando a gente compartilha a história da gente, a gente percebe que somos todos seres humanos, alguns com periods, outros não, né? Mas somos todos seres humanos. Acho que esse é o primeiro ponto. Segundo, a minha bisavó foi escrava. Can you believe that? Minha bisavó foi escrava, e o meu bisavô, um siciliano, mouro, de olhos verdes, se apaixonou por aquela mulher opulenta que ela era, que eu me lembro perfeitamente. E aí a nossa família se iniciou a partir daí. Então, uma boa parte da minha família é negra. E eu sou o primeiro branco, considerado branco da família. E eu vivi de perto a violência doméstica de muitos dos meus primos, tias. O meu pai deixou a nossa casa quando eu tinha 5 anos de idade. Então, minha mãe teve que assumir a responsabilidade pela família e foi abrigada, recebida pelos meus avós, que nos ajudaram de uma forma incrível. E eu fui criado para respeitar as mulheres, que eram o apoio, a âncora da família em vários momentos, e também para não depender de mulheres, que eu acho que é muito interessante do ponto de vista masculino. Então, não sei quantas de vocês aqui sabem fazer barra de saia plissada, mas eu fiz. Né? Porque em algum momento da minha vida, quando eu morava no Canadá, não é fácil, mas eu posso te ensinar depois como é que vai. Plissada, não era qualquer saia. Porque minha filha descia do ECS School, em Montreal, com as botinas na saia, pelo morro, no período de inverno, chegava lá embaixo, a barra estava arrebentada, eu tinha que consertar. Né? Eu criei os meus filhos sozinho, com a ajuda de outras mulheres, mas não com a ajuda da mãe deles. Ok? Para vocês terem uma ideia da minha história. Então, o compromisso meu pessoal, e que eu gosto de transmitir e reforçar na CCBC, na instituição, é no sentido de respeitar essas diferenças, ser empático e entender estes movimentos. Então, aqui na CCBC, a gente realmente tenta fazer o que fala que faz. Né? E nós temos, além da Comissão de Diversidade e Inclusão, para os associados e membros, nós também temos uma comissão interna de diversidade, apenas para os colaboradores, para que eles possam discutir as suas questões. Então, compartilhei minha biografia com vocês. Perdão pelo tempo. A outra coisa é a responsabilidade daqueles que se sentem privilegiados pela vida e pelo próprio sucesso. Que responsabilidade é essa que a gente tem com relação à questão da inclusão, como você bem colocou, Mônica? O outro ponto é focar na preservação das oportunidades. É fundamental para a inclusão. Eu me lembro que quando eu trabalhava em mineração, a Daniela falou alguma coisa sobre mineração, eu perguntava, quando eu ia às minas, onde é que estavam os banheiros femininos, porque eu queria entrar neles, porque eles são diferentes. Não tinha. Aí eu falei, mas por que não tem banheiro para mulher? Não, porque não tem espaço. Eu falei, tá bom. Então, a partir de hoje, 30% dos banheiros que a gente tem são para mulheres. Pasmem, apareceram mais 30% de banheiros. Tão simples quanto isso. Então, pequenas ações podem trazer grandes diferenças, grandes mudanças imediatas. Outra coisa que eu posso compartilhar com vocês, ergonomia na indústria, por exemplo. A ergonomia é um dos grandes obstáculos à entrada de mulheres no mercado de trabalho, porque as máquinas foram feitas para pessoas que pesam 100 quilos, que têm 1,80 m de altura, né? E ninguém pensa em mulher quando faz projeto. Tão simples quanto isso, né? Como é que a gente pode mudar isso? Né? São coisas básicas dessa forma. Do ponto de vista familiar, doméstico, quão importante é compartilhar a rotina diária com o casal, né? Quão importante é incluir os filhos, incluir principalmente os meninos nesta atividade, né? Até que ponto a gente influencia educando os filhos, a gente perpetua esses paradigmas, esses preconceitos, né? Eu estou levando isso para casa. As mulheres empreendem para criar filhos e ajudar os maridos e acabam se estabelecendo em nichos e centros de empreendedorismo, né? Sim, é isso mesmo. E que bom que é assim, porque o protagonismo vem sempre das dificuldades. Então, o que eu ouço aqui é que não é só a adaptabilidade que as mulheres podem ter mais que os homens, porque fisicamente elas precisam ser adaptáveis, porque a sua própria anatomia muda constantemente, né? Mas também porque a dificuldade é que constrói sucesso. Então, como é que a gente pode reconhecer essa dificuldade e apoiar em vários sentidos? Mas agora, né, cada um de nós, o que pode fazer pela sua secretária em casa, que não fez até agora, né? Quantos de nós dedicamos tempo para ouvir as pessoas que fazem faxina na nossa casa? Eu sei que é difícil, mas é importante. Estou levando isso para mim. E o último é existe uma grande diferença entre a realidade brasileira e a realidade canadense, mas nós podemos aprender colaborativamente ao trocar ideias, e eu ofereço a Câmara novamente para todos, para que este seja o lugar onde a gente aprenda colaborativamente. Brasil-Canadá. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your patience to listening to my male thoughts.
Ei, que a vida podia ser bem melhor e será, mas isso não impede que eu repita. É bonita e é bonita. Obrigada.